For the last couple of months, I have been thoroughly debating what gaming monitor I should upgrade to for my existing Dell S2719DGF. Now that monitor has treated me extremely well over the last couple of years, but I have definitely also figured out some of its flaws over that time as well. Now the Dell is a 1440p, 27-inch, 144 Hz overclockable to 155 Hz monitor, and that's all I've really needed for the last couple of years based on my gaming hardware and my PC specs. But there are some definite drawbacks to this monitor. It is a TN panel, which means that it has some very washed out colors, poor contrast, amazing response time and latency, don't get me wrong, but due to the way that TN technology works, it just doesn't have very clear colors or very vibrant colors compared to a VA or an IPS panel. So there's a couple things that I'm considering now when it comes to upgrading to a new gaming monitor. Should I increase resolution? Should I increase refresh rate? Should I go IPS or VA? So there's a lot that's been going through my head when I've been trying to figure out what gaming monitor I should buy next. And although there's some amazing monitors out right now, there's also some really interesting technology coming our way soon with like mini LED and QD OLED technology finally hitting the gaming monitor segment. But if I had to buy a monitor right now, there's different price ranges, of course, that I could go with, still sticking in that 1440p or even 4K spectrum. So looking at like 1440p, 240 Hz even if we wanted to update refresh rate. You could go with something like this Asus, which hits all the boxes, 1440p, 240 Hz, really nice color accuracy out of the box, HDR, a built-in NVIDIA G-Sync chip, which is gonna give you the full capabilities of G-Sync variable refresh rate, or you can even go something 4K that's 120 Hz, 144 Hz, or even 240 Hz like this Samsung. But when you look at any of those models, the prices are insane, going anywhere from like $700 to well over $1,000. And I've been thinking, does it really make any sense to buy something for that much money now when we know the technology is going to improve over the next couple of years? This is more of like a stopgap monitor in my mind that I'm trying to purchase at this point. So I finally settled on a monitor and I went with the Asus VG27AQ1A. And there's a lot of amazing features to this monitor. 170 Hz refresh rate, 1440p, 27 inches, a really nice stand along with this tough gaming monitor. Overall, everything that I've really needed, even slight upgrades compared to my Dell S2719DGF, that should let me just utilize a little bit more of my new RTX 3080 Ti. I really don't think there's a gaming monitor out there right now better than this one at under $300. So let's get this thing unboxed, show you all of the features and design aspects of this monitor, get it installed in my desk setup, and I'll show you guys exactly how this thing performs in games. So let's get this thing unboxed, and as we get it out of the box, the packaging is really, really nice and definitely secure. No issues when it comes to any shipping damage or anything like that inside of this packaging. So we pull out the monitor, we have the stand as well. It also comes with an HDMI and DisplayPort cable out of the box for you, as well as the power brick and power cable. So pretty much everything you need to get this thing working out of the box and hooked up to your PC or console or whatever you're going to use this for. This stand's a pretty nice shape. It's coated in like a textured black kind of rubber finish. So overall, it looks the part, and it also isn't too heavy or anything like that. And it should definitely keep this monitor nice and secure on your desk. So like I mentioned, you also get that DisplayPort and HDMI cable. So HDMI 2.0 and a DisplayPort 1.2 cable. All you need to get the full frame rate and resolution out of this monitor. And then you also get that external power brick and power cable to actually power this monitor. So let's get the VG27AQ out of its packaging so we can show you exactly what this monitor looks like. So the stand comes pre-connected, or at least half of the stand comes pre-connected to the monitor, and we'll go through all of the stand capabilities in a little bit. But overall, the monitor looks really, really nice. So it's got a bit of a gamer aesthetic, but no RGB or anything like that. It also has a bunch of ventilation to keep this thing cool. Like I mentioned, you get that HDMI 2.0 by 2 and DisplayPort 1.2. Wish it had 1.4, but 1.2 is all you need for 1440p and 170 Hz. And then the stand just attaches to the already pre-installed part of the stand by just interlocking with those 4 kind of nuts off the bottom of that piece. And then you just use these 2 screws, and you can either finger tighten them with the attached piece, or you can use a flathead. And let's actually jump into this monitor. So here it is, the Asus VG27AQ1A. It looks awesome, at least from the back and the stand and everything I can see. Let's get this protective cover taken off of the screen and actually get a full glimpse of what this panel and monitor looks like. So there we have it, the Asus TUF VG27AQ1A, 2560 by 1440, like I said, 170 Hz, rapid refresh rate, IPS, 1 millisecond response time, extreme low motion blur, G-Sync compatible, and HDR. So like everything you could really need in a gaming monitor under $300. And the stand is pretty good as well. You get plus and minus 20 degrees of horizontal rotation, and then you get 5 or -5 to 20 degrees of vertical tilt. Now there is no height adjust, which I'm not too worried about. I do have a dual monitor arm that I'll be using with this monitor along with my other Asus color accuracy based panel. That should give me all the adjustability and maneuverability that I need with this monitor. But if you do not have an arm, I'll have mine linked down in the description below. But if you are going to use this stand, just know that you do have some limited adjustability when it comes to height. So overall, for $300, I do wish the stand had a little bit more adjustability, but just know that out of the box, you're just not gonna get that much ability to kind of change the stance of this monitor on your desk. And when it comes to the menu buttons and all that stuff on this monitor, you do have 4 buttons here. So bottom one being power, you have 2 source selector buttons here. This is like an escape button, and then you have your toggle joystick style button for the menu items. So let's get this thing hooked up in my setup, get it on the dual monitor arm, hook it up to the 3080 Ti, and see how it performs. So in order to get this thing installed onto our VESA mount, it's very, very simple. So you just got to unscrew the 4 screws holding in that pre-installed part of the stand, and then it's just some rubber grommets that are actually in the screw holes for the VESA mount. So you get those out, and then you can screw whatever VESA mount you need into the back of the display. So now we have it installed and we can get it powered on, and this thing is looking pretty sweet. So now that we're powered on, let's jump into the on-screen display and all of the buttons and everything like that. So jumping in, the 2 buttons you have are, main buttons are controller, which is all your game settings, FPS counter, display alignment, you can put the on-screen crosshair and all of that stuff. And then you also have the game visuals, or kind of your display modes. So you have racing mode, scenery mode, RG or sRGB mode, all of those modes to be able to filter through. We can also then jump into the more in-depth settings. You have overclocking available on this display to get it from 144 Hz up to that advertised 170 Hz. You also have options in between at 155, 160, 165, and 170. You also then have overdrive settings to put a little overdrive on the pixels to get them responding a little bit quicker. Of course, we have G-Sync, and extreme low motion blur is not available when G-Sync is turned on. You also have access to all of those game settings and game visuals in the main on-screen display menu as well. So jumping through this a little bit more, you can also then adjust your brightness and contrast. This screen doesn't get super bright, peaking at like 300 nits in SDR. So not the brightest, but plenty bright enough for gaming. And then you also have a bunch of other options in here to take full advantage of this display. Now I will note that the display isn't super like white out of the box, so a white screen or a white visual on my ProArt display looks white compared to this like grayish reddish tint on the VG27AQ1A. So it's not like super white out of the box, but the colors are really, really nice. Like it says, 130% sRGB coverage on this display. So overall, yeah, it's a little bit grayish in terms of the colors. If you do switch over to HDR, it does kind of make it a lot brighter and a lot more vivid when it comes to the whites. The blacks aren't also super deep. And when you do switch it into HDR, you are definitely limited in the HDR capabilities of this display. There's not a lot of local dimming when it comes to the HDR content, but let's just show that piece to you guys in terms of like what HDR capabilities this monitor, this display actually has. So we can turn HDR on, or actually we'll leave it off for a second and we'll jump in and show you guys what this HDR content looks like in SDR and then switch it over to HDR. So now that was a quick visual of HDR off, and if we turn HDR on, we can hopefully see that extra brightness in the brighter parts of the scene. So where the sun is peeking through the railing or off the window reflection, it should be a little bit brighter than it was in SDR. And you can definitely see that it is, but it's definitely not the best HDR experience. Local dimming isn't great, and the brightness is a little bit lacking. And if we switch over to something where this monitor really excels, motion blur and ghosting, you can really tell here from our UFO test, with the top line being at 170 FPS, there's very limited trailing or leading edge, leading to really good motion blur or lack of motion blur and lack of ghosting. And if we jump over to an actual game, and in this case Valorant, where we really need that additional FPS, everything is looking really, really good. You can see the monitor is limiting us to 170 Hertz based on the actual monitor refresh rate and us using G-Sync, even though in Valorant we're pushing well over 300 or 350 FPS. So that variable refresh rate really comes in handy in order to limit screen tearing and artifacting of that nature. So overall, I'm loving this monitor. The more I use it, the more I really, really like it. I wish it was a little bit brighter. I wish the stand was a little bit better, even though I do have the base mount. But overall, very limited complaints when it comes to this monitor, especially at that $300 price point. So if you guys are looking for this monitor, I'll have it linked in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, make sure to leave those down below. And if you haven't already, get subscribed to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.